And prior to that, now that would have been the fall of '58.
This was the fall of '58, right?
Yeah. And so prior to that, you guys were 5 guys and 10 guys and 8 guys. And
We were the typical fraternity singing group. I mean, how many guys felt like going out and standing under the balcony at the Theta House and singing Buddy Holly or Elvis Presley songs?
Yeah.
And that's what we did. But then we started to get some serious invitations to college functions on the campus at the University of Washington. And then from there to the Colony Club, where we worked weekends for 9 months. And in the spring of 1959, when we went down to San Francisco and did have an audition, that's where we met Mort Lewis. And that proved to be really very, very important because Mort got us the recording contract at Columbia. He steered our audition tape to Mitch Miller, who listened to it and said, let's sign these guys.
now, is it true, now Mort Lewis was managing Dave Brubeck,
Yes.
living in the Bay Area.
That's right.
And is it true that it was kind of coincidence that he happened to be there when you guys were singing?
There was a young lady that we had known at the University of Washington who had transferred to the University of California. And when she heard that we were going to be in the Bay Area for this audition, she contacted Mort and she said, I think you should hear these guys sing. I think you might be interested in a business sense.
And he'd been offered to manage the Kingston Trio and said, there's no way.
That's right.
So he wasn't about to turn his head around one more time.
And not just the Kingston Trio, there was a young track star by the name of Johnny Mathis, who was also offered to Mort for a managerial standpoint.
Wow.
And so anyway, he wasn't going to make a third mistake, he said, so he signed the Brothers Four.
Amazing. And you guys went down in Bob Flick's dad's station wagon?
We
down to
borrowed
San
the Flick
Francisco?
station wagon and drove all the way down.
Man, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that would have been the spring of '59, and then between that time and the Oscars from the 1960 movies, so early 1961, you guys had a #1 song, Greenfields,
Right.
and an Oscar-nominated song, Green Leaves of Summer, and you'd appeared at the White House with Kennedy.
Yes, yeah. I was thinking about this the other day. Being invited to sing at the Kennedy inaugural was the biggest thing that had happened to us to date. And there was a huge snowstorm that came into Washington, D.C. the night before John Kennedy was inaugurated. So we didn't get to meet the newly elected president at that time, but we did meet Bobby and Ethel, and then we went up to the Johnson's suite, Lyndon Johnson's suite, and sang for his daughters after we performed in the ballroom.
That's just what an amazing few months in somebody's life.
It truly was.
Yeah.
It truly was, and great memories. I look back on it and I can't help but smile.
Wow, and it had been like the five trips to the White House, five times singing.
Well, we sang at the Kennedy inaugural, and I think we sang for the Johnsons 4 or 5 different times, and then we were invited to the Nixon White House,
Which was, I was
well.
lucky
That's
enough
right.
to be
You
part of
were
that.
with us at that time.
I was the only one in a rented tux. Well, and I think another thing that was as the way this story seems to work for me is that folk music and just people's having the innocence that for me that music sort of brought out in this sort of sense of we shall overcome, or kumbaya, and
Sure.
is that it really ended with Kennedy's death. You also, speaking of Jack Kennedy, you also had a moment at that time that was
We did. After Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, we were asked if we would appear with Bob Hope at the SMU Field House. And this was a benefit to raise money for the Tippit family. And Officer Tippit was the officer who had been shot by Lee Harvey Oswald as he tried to escape. So we did, and we had this odd thread of continuity with Bob Hope. He was, not only did we appear with him on a number of occasions, but he was also the master of ceremonies at the Oscar ceremony when we sang The Green Leaves of Summer. Yeah. So we kept bumping into one another.
Well, and speaking of snowstorms, it seemed like you guys arrived late and were rehearsing facing away from the door.
Yes.
When you were preparing, and some other voice kind of came in the dressing room.
And it was singing very well, but it was singing nonsense lyrics. And as we turned around to see who the fifth member of the group was, it was Kaye.
Wow.
Who, coincidentally, I ended up working for many years later in a Seattle production company called K. Smith Productions.
Right.
And Danny was the silent partner in that production company.